we were driven by curiosity, by answering a basic biological question that was untouched at the time, and that's how the body removes its own proteins, because it was known that proteins are being generated and degraded, but people had little idea about how they are removed. They knew a lot about how they are being made. And people thought that this is completely unimportant, some end process. We nevertheless thought that it's interesting. We went into it. We discovered an amazing system. And what's even more amazing are the applications of the system. The drug industry just last year, based on what we discovered, reached almost $15 billion. And the expectation that by 2020 it will be close to $40 billion. We are not involved in it at all, but it just shows you that science distills itself. And you do one part, some other people take it, bring it to the next step. The companies are bringing it to the next step, and so on and so forth. So driven by curiosity, as was said, and I have nothing but to reiterate and to strengthen it, is the only way for achievements.
Cuando aparecieron los antibióticos, conseguimos la sustitución de la vejiga urinaria por un segmento de intestino. Significó que podíamos hacer una terapéutica lógica en el cáncer de la vejiga urinaria. Es decir, le cambiamos la vejiga tumoral por una vejiga intestinal y permitió al enfermo recuperar la micción. Aquel fue el primer salto. Se logró después la sustitución del uréter, por ejemplo, con intestinos. Y otro salto importante ya fue la aparición en la cirugía de litiasis por unos nuevos conceptos que precisamente enumeraremos un poco en el día de hoy. Y definitivamente ha sido el trasplante renal.
I will talk about a lot of how to connect science with applications. That's what I have spent my full career on, from basic science to different applications. And in this talk I will give an example of something called affibodies that are used in therapy, that are used in diagnostics, but in my talk I will be very brief. But my whole, the purpose of my example is actually to explain that basic science, it's based on curiosity, and you have no idea what applications they may lead to. And in my case, we didn't have a clue. We were just curious, we published good papers, and then it has led to some really, really good application in terms of companies and applications that are used for now in several clinical trials.
I thought that it might be appropriate to choose a field in which I could show a long depth of the contribution of Egypt through the ages. And people know us as the pyramid builders, but so I thought I would talk about medicine, because ancient Egyptians also had major contributions in medicine thousands of years ago. And it is that tradition of curiosity, clinical observation, experimentation that we still maintain and that we hope will give us a much better future for all.
Abrimos esta solemne sesión de recepción de los excelentísimos señores doctores Aaron CIECHANOVER, Josep María GIL-VERNET Vila, Björn Nilsson e Ismael SERAGELDIN como académicos de honor. ¿Ratificáis vuestra aceptación de ingreso a la Real Academia Europea de Doctores? Sí. ¿Prometéis cumplir fielmente los estatutos de la Real Academia Europea de Doctores y aportar vuestro saber y colaboración en vuestros trabajos científicos, tanto de carácter individual como colectivo, con el fin de velar por el prestigio de vuestra institución cuantas veces fuereis requerido para ello? Sí.
El trasplante de órganos nació en la mitad del siglo pasado en un ambiente de gran escepticismo y conflictividad, pero que hoy continúa hacia un futuro aún más esplendoroso si cabe, y cada día se torna presente salvando muchas vidas. Los resultados del Dr. Murray en Boston en 1954, con el primer trasplante mundial de riñón entre dos hermanos mellizos, y los del Dr. Hamburger en el Hospital Necker de París, llevaron al equipo del Dr. GIL-VERNET a profundizar en esta materia. Pero aquellos esfuerzos constituyeron el banco de pruebas, tanto quirúrgico, médico o inmunológico, que encaminó a la medicina en España al trasplante de otros órganos humanos, como el de corazón por el Dr. José María Carals, el del hígado por el Dr. Margarit, el de pulmón por el Dr. Estudillo.
Tres cosas son necesarias para el desarrollo del cirujano. La primera es una habilidad intrínseca y la capacidad de sufrir las maduraciones para alcanzar un alto grado de diferenciación. La segunda es el ambiente adecuado para cada nivel de desarrollo. Por consiguiente, además de la vocación genética, es necesaria no apartarse del ambiente universitario y vivir en comunidad con un hospital acorde a la maduración deseada. La tercera, la más importante, es tener conocimiento anatómico preciso de la región u órgano donde se interviene. Es la base para operar con seguridad y éxito. Por lo que mi discurso versará sobre la anatomía en el desarrollo de las técnicas quirúrgicas modernas.
He started his medical studies in the Hebrew University of Jerusalem in 1964 and, paraphrasing his own words, towards the end of the fourth year, serious doubts had begun to arise whether I made the right choice. The imbalance between phenomenology and pathogenetic mechanisms of diseases on one hand, and the lack of any mechanism-based treatment for most of the major killers on the other hand, made me seriously think that I was on the wrong trail. I started to realize how little we know and how descriptive is our understanding of disease mechanisms and pathology, and as a consequence, how most treatments are symptomatic in nature rather than causative.
Nowadays, universities are short in money worldwide. And in order to overcome this shortage, they are pushing the young faculty and many scientists into what they call translational research or applied research. That means that there is a commercial product, a medicine, a device, an instrument behind. Well, to the superficial eye, it looks very attractive. Why not? The taxpayer is holding the universities, is paying for them. Why is it that the universities will not come up with a product in order to better human life? But let's look at history. We are making huge advance. Look at the 20th century. 100 years ago, people lived about 50 to 55 years. We died of simple infections. We didn't have X-ray. We didn't have anesthesiology. We didn't have antibiotics. We didn't have vaccines. Nowadays, 100 years only into the road, we added more than 30 years into our lifespan. 30 years in one single century. If we look even further back into the old Egyptians and Greeks, they lived around 30 years. So it took humanity 4,000 years in order to extend lifetime from 35 years to 55, and then one single century to jump by 30 years.
El profesor Nilsson ha desempeñado una amplia variedad de funciones de gestión y ejecutivas, tanto en la industria biotecnológica como farmacéutica, principalmente dentro del grupo de empresas Farmacia, entre los que destacan sus responsabilidades como presidente y vicepresidente de diversas compañías públicas. Asimismo, y durante un periodo de 4 años, fue presidente de la Organización de la Industria Biotecnológica Sueca, Sweden Bio, y hoy en día, junto a la presidencia de la Royal Swedish Academy of Engineering Science, se desempeña como miembro de diversas juntas de gobierno, incluyendo la presidencia de la Junta Directiva de la compañía biotecnológica BioInvent International AB y es miembro del equipo de dirección de la empresa de ingeniería AF. El profesor Nilsson, en la actualidad, es asimismo miembro de un amplio y selecto número de organizaciones internacionales, nacionales, gubernamentales y no gubernamentales en áreas tan distintas y a la vez tan unidas como la ciencia, la educación y la innovación.
There was a Hungarian scientist by the name of Theodor von Karman who in the 1950s canned a very, very useful expression. Science studies what is. Engineering creates what never was. Professor Karman was a distinguished aerodynamics scientist. He made the mathematics behind what we call the jet planes of today. And he was very much balancing the basic science and the applied science. And I think this expression is today almost regarded as a poem, a very elegant poem in the area of science. Because in my own world, science and engineering are extremely successful as solution providers. And we can deal with any area of transport, communication between people, food both for production, transport, storage, healthcare. We have heard about to get clean water, clean air, to get energy, and even how we handle money is very much derived from how science and engineering have provided new solutions to us. And therefore, one conclusion is that science and innovation are important because in a knowledge society that's needed to create a better world. And Alan Kay canned in 1971, the best way to predict the future is to invent it. I hope that will come true in many of the big challenges we have in today's society.
Deseo acercar a la audiencia a los pensamientos del doctor Ismail SERAGELDIN, el nuevo miembro de la Real Academia Europea de Doctores, con las palabras que aparecen como introducción a su página web en el Internet, donde habla sobre su credo. El mundo es mi hogar, la humanidad es mi familia, la no violencia es mi credo, paz, justicia, equidad y dignidad para todos es mi propósito. Participación, racionalidad, tolerancia, diálogo, aprendizaje y comprensión son mis medios. Con manos extendidas doy la bienvenida a todos aquellos que comparten esta creencia. Hay expresiones que suelen sonar al lugar común, porque se las dice repetitivamente, pero es necesario apelar a ellas cuando se las siente de verdad y brotan del reconocimiento de la persona de quien se habla, como en este caso en el que debo decir que me siento profundamente honrada por el encargo recibido de parte del ilustre presidente de la Real Academia de Doctores de Europa, Alfredo Rocafort, de pronunciar este discurso para recibir como su miembro al excelentísimo director de la Biblioteca de Alejandría, Ismail SERAGELDIN.
I come from Egypt, a land as old as time, where medicine was born, and where the brain was given a name and its components studied. Already some 5,000 years ago, from the mists of time, there emerges the majestic figure of the ancient Egyptian polymath, Imhotep, known for having been the architect-engineer of the stepped pyramid of Saqqara, the precursor to all the great Egyptian pyramids that were to follow. But Imhotep was also a medical doctor of great ability, and he was the first human being anywhere on the planet whose name was recorded because of his intellectual merit rather than his being a king or a conqueror. He was deified by the ancient Egyptians as the Egyptian god of medicine. And as far as I know, it is the earliest example of advancement based on merit. Imhotep, who flourished almost 5,000 years ago, is considered to be the author of a medical treatise which was handed down through the generations and survives in a copy, the so-called Edwin Smith papyrus, which is between 3,500 and 4,000 years old. Now that document is remarkable for containing anatomical observations, diagnosis of ailments, and recommendations for cures, all of which are based on empirical observation and devoid of references to magic and incantation. Thus, Imhotep should deservedly be considered the father of medicine, for having established that humans can study and understand both trauma and disease and can intervene to deal with it by surgery and herbs. It was under his tutelage that the exquisite combination of art and science that medicine represents was born. It is also interesting to note that in this earliest catalogue of interventions, the recommendations also include cases where it is recommended not to intervene.
Permiten expressar el gran honor que significa pronunciar aquestes paraules d'agraïment en representació de l'Institut d'Espanya. Gratitud por la distinción concedida, que es espero y responsabilidad. Son paraules que se encuadren en el context de l'afecte y ahora del rigor acadèmic propi d'un acte d'aquesta naturaleza. El camino hasta aquí no ha sido fácil. En toda trayectoria siempre positivo hacer una pausa, mirar hacia atrás y sobre todo mirar hacia adelante para mejorar lo hecho hasta ahora. La gran responsabilidad de cada generación es la siguiente: para asegurar a los que llegan a un paso de nosotros los frutos de la experiencia, de la reflexión, de nuestra propia invención humana. El futuro es ignoto. Sin embargo, una cosa es clara: la ingeniería, un proceso eminentemente creativo, no llevará a cabo su objetivo de espaldas a la sociedad. El compromiso social es inherente a la acción. Las relaciones políticas y económicas entre las naciones y sus ciudadanos impactarán en la práctica de la tecnología en el futuro, probablemente en un grado mayor al actual. Las innovaciones tienen lugar cuando se detecta o aparece una necesidad o un deseo. Incluso emerge si la oportunidad se presenta. Pero la acción esperada de mayor valor añadido no se encontrará en lo que denominamos disciplinas, sino en las fronteras mal definidas entre ellas. Ambición, curiosidad insaciable, un espíritu de interrogación permanente ante la observación directa del mundo y un deseo compulsivo de comprenderlo o la pasión por cuestionar la ortodoxia. En resumen, ¿cómo resolver los problemas más arduos de nuestro tiempo? Rompiendo las reglas. Tales son algunos de los rasgos que aseguran el progreso continuo de investigación para conocernos a nosotros mismos y el mundo que habitamos.